Welcome to datascience.show, the podcast where data science meets executive leadership. We talk with top AI and analytics thought leaders about turning data into real business impact. If you're a C-level leader or data expert shaping the future, you're in the right place.
Imagine this. A high-growth product team needs fast access to customer profiles to train a personalization model. They spin up a data feed. Analysts prototype features. A vendor pulls a downstream copy for testing. And 3 months later, regulators knock. A media story surfaces about unexpected data sharing, and churn ticks up in a core cohort. No one kept an executive ledger of what was exposed, who could access it, or how quickly that exposure grew. Sound familiar? It should. Too often we treat privacy as a checklist and speed as the default. Today, I want to give you a different instrument, the privacy budget, a decision-first, funding-ready framework that turns ambiguous exposure into measurable, auditable choices. By the end of this episode, you'll have board-ready metrics, a prioritization rubric, and a 30-90-day checklist to start protecting the most critical exposures without stopping innovation.
Quick frame before we dive in. I approach privacy as a funding and prioritization problem, not just compliance. Strategy before technology. Decide where to spend protection first, then pick the controls. If you give me 5 minutes, I'll show you how to treat data exposure as a budget line item you can allocate, measure, and audit. This is for CEOs, CTOs, CDOs, GC, procurement, anyone who must weigh data-driven innovation against legal, reputational, and operational risk.
So what is a privacy budget? In plain English, think of it like a financial budget, but for exposure. 3 core components. Surface area. How many distinct data fields, cohorts, or artifacts are accessible? Sensitivity weight. A simple score for how harmful leakage is if that field or cohort is exposed. And access velocity, the rate at which new consumers, models, or vendors gain access. Multiply those together and you get an exposure score. The budget is a cap you set per product line or business domain, a tolerance threshold tied to risk appetite and business value. When your exposure burn approaches the cap, you either pay by adding controls, reduce spend by limiting access, or reallocate budget elsewhere. It's explicit, auditable, and, crucially, decision-friendly.
Executives need quick, board-ready signals. If you can estimate exposure in 72 hours, you win alignment. Use conservative heuristics. Count sensitive field occurrences across product datasets. Tally unique downstream consumers and third-party recipients. Measure access frequency per week and estimate the number of distinct cohorts containing sensitive combinations. Turn those into 3 KPIs that map to the budget. Exposure velocity, how quickly new sensitive accesses appear. Budget burn rate, percent of your cap consumed per month. And high-risk cohort count, number of cohorts exceeding a sensitivity threshold. You can get rough but auditable numbers using access logs, data catalog tags, and a sampling of query histories. Present those to the board with clear caveats. These are signals, not final estimates, and commit to a validation step before you convert signals into policy.
Once you can measure exposure, you need a simple prioritization rubric. I use a single score: business value times exposure times detection latency. Business value is revenue or strategic optionality. Exposure is your sensitivity-weighted surface area. Detection latency is how long before you would know about an issue. Multiply them, then normalize to a 0 to 100 scale. Projects above a set threshold require budget approval and a mitigation plan before continued data access. Low-score projects get lighter controls or compensating measures. This gives procurement, legal, and engineering a common language. High score equals fund controls now. Medium score equals compensating controls plus monitoring. Low score equals proceed, but log and revisit. It aligns funding with risk and avoids treating every dataset like it needs the same level of protection. Procurement and contracts are where budgets turn into enforceable behavior. Insert explicit clauses that map to your budget gates. Limit downstream use to agreed product scopes. require data minimization and deletion schedules, demand attestations on access controls and lineage, mandate breach notification windows that match your detection to decision SLA, and reserve audit rights with a clear cadence. Also add a clause for budget exception requests, short-lived, documented permissions that require sponsor sign-off and expiration. Use these clauses to make vendor risk measurable and budget-aware. Vendors that insist on unlimited downstream use should be a conversation at the vendor review level, not an engineering negotiation.
On the technical side, favor decision-friendly controls that can be staged. Start with minimization. Reduce scope before you invent protection. Then apply masking and pseudonymization for analytics access, scoped feature stores for production models, and synthetic augmentation where it preserves model fidelity without real data exposure. Consider differential privacy as a knob, but treat it as specialized, useful in some analytics contexts, less so for feature stores that must retain individual-level fidelity. Don't ignore tooling. Enforce access via short-lived credentials, centralize approval workflows, and log every copy. Importantly, match controls to the prioritization rubric. High-score items should get stronger cryptographic or architectural controls. Medium items may get compensating process controls and increased telemetry.
Monitoring, audits, and incident gates are your enforcement layer. Define telemetry requirements tied to budget gates. Who accessed what, when, and for what purpose. Automated alerts when cohort counts or sensitive field accesses cross thresholds, and an audit trail that shows mitigation decisions and exceptions. Specify detection to decision latencies. For critical exposures, you might require detection within 24 hours and a decision to pause or remediate within 72 hours. Define what a budget breach means. Automatic pause for new access, mandatory remediation plan, and an escalated review to the Privacy Council or the board if needed. Make these gates explicit so teams know the operational consequences of burning the budget. Okay, pragmatic next steps you can deliver in the next 30 to 90 days. First 30 days, inventory your top 3 exposures, high-value products, top data feeds, and key vendors. Use the 72-hour signal heuristics to produce preliminary exposure scores. Next 60 days, run pilots on those top 3, apply compensating controls, and insert a standard procurement clause for all new vendor contracts. By 90 days, report budget burn rate and high-risk cohort counts to the board and ask for targeted funding to remediate the highest scoring exposure. Quick wins: enforce short-lived credentials, require field-level tagging in your data catalog, and add a one-paragraph privacy budget clause to all new SOWs. Start small, measure impact, then expand funding based on actual risk reduction. 3 executive takeaways to close. 1. Treat data exposure like a budget you can measure, fund, and audit. It converts fuzzy trade-offs into board-level decisions. 2. Use simple, conservative heuristics to get signals quickly, then validate before you report. 3. Bake budget gates into procurement and operational workflows so protection follows spending. If you want the practical checklist and suggested vendor language, download the Privacy Budget Checklist at datascience.show/privacybudget. Make this a funded line item, run staged pilots, and show measured risk reduction. From models to measurable value, that's the difference between models and value.
Thanks for listening to datascience.show. If you found value in this episode, subscribe, share it with your network, and join us next time as we explore how data science drives smarter decisions and better business outcomes.